Last chance to look at me, Hector. Crippled little rocker.
Currently, there are some Pokemon in GSC UU that are in UU yet are mediocre to outright bad in the tier. Some of them, as you can see, Raichu and Golduck, were in NU at one point, yet were too powerful for it, and are now stuck in UU because they're awful in it. Frogger doesn't count, by the way, because it's actually good in UU despite being in UBL, but whatever. But like, there are also a couple like Arcanine, Kadabra, Pikachu, and Vileplume, who are just not like good in UU, yet were ranked highly enough on people with VRs that they ended up in UU. The likes of Girafarig actually is also another case, because like it used to be good before Agility Pass was banned, and now it's kind of like mediocre as far as I can tell. Now, because of this, there's always going to be discussion on dropping these Pokemon down to NU, and most of them are kind of like foregone conclusions that they would be very, very broken in NU. Like Arcanine stats are simply too high to ever consider allowing it in NU. Kadabra is like Kadabra is basically just imagine a more overpowered Xatu in the tier with Recover. And Girafarig is basically Xatu and Stantler combined into one Pokemon, and you can imagine the carnage that will cause. Pikachu might actually be balanced because like there's no leftovers, it's easily revenge-killed by Doug, it's outfed by Xatu, but like I think it will most likely be an inherently negative impact on the tier, because I mean the tier is already like very offensive, so I think Pikachu would just make it even more extremely offensive. But there's one Pokemon that the general consensus that there's one Pokemon that like isn't really clearly overpowered like at all, and that isn't like very obviously broken in it. That doesn't seem like broken at all in NU. That is currently stuck in UU despite being bad in it. And that Pokemon is Vileplume. Now, at first glance, it may seem kind of ridiculous to think that like Vileplume would at all be like overpowered or unhealthy for the tier, because, well, first of all, it struggles with the two best Pokemon in the tier, Xatu and Weezing. Xatu just outspeeds it and deals a shit ton with Psychic, while Vileplume struggles to hurt Weezing back. And so, a lot of Pokemon in the tier are balanced by around being being bad against the top tiers, like say Primeape. Now, what does Vileplume do for the tier? Well, let's look at if you look at another one of the best Pokemon in the tier, Octillery. You may notice that Vileplume really shits on Hidden Power Electric variants of Octillery really hard, and Hidden Power with the Hidden Power Octillery being the most common Octillery stats, and it also shits on Chinchou really hard. Now, if Vileplume were to drop, Octori would still be a force in the tier because it doesn't, because it can just simply just switch over to Ice Beam there, Ice Beam as its coverage move and not have any issues with Vileplume at all. And also, it's because and the reason why Ice Beam Octori isn't as common nowadays is because it gets you walled by other hidden power electric Octori, but with Vileplume in the tier, that wouldn't really be a problem. So Octori can pretty comfortably switch over to Ice Beam. And it's not like, plus Ice Beam Octori actually arguably has a higher overall ceiling than hidden power electric Octori due to better DVs as well as being better against Dugtrio. It makes Octori an actually reliable check to Dugtrio. And the only reason why it's not used as much nowadays because just being walled by hidden power electric Octori is really bad. So it's only used on specific teams that can handle Ice Beam Octori giving electric Octori free switch-ins, i.e. teams like Gloom or Chinchou. But with Vileplume in the tier, it would be a lot more common. Now, unlike Octori, Chinchou would actually probably drop out of the tier completely, because, it just can't really do anything to Vileplume. It could try to run, Ice Beam, but, and it might still be viable if it runs Ice Beam, but, Ice Beam is still a really bad, Sleep Talk roll most of the time, so it's probably not worth it. And plus, Chinchou's talents just wouldn't really be as needed with Vileplume in the tier, so it's probably dropping out completely. Some players think that GSC and NU that effectively doesn't have Chinchou would actually be a lot better because Chinchou ends up because they believe that Chinchou is actually a difficult Pokemon to switch into for the tier. And a lot of really honestly genuinely decent GSC and NU teams actually kind of struggle to switch into Chinchou, if I'm being honest, because especially because electric type attacks in general in the tier are pretty difficult to switch into. Because if you look at some of the most common offensive core in the tier, Xatu, Octori, Pineco, and Dugtrio, you'd see that none of these 4 Pokemon really switch into Chinchou well at all. Dugtrio can punish Thunder, but obviously has to resurf, and Chinchou just takes advantage of your own Octori all day long. And a lot of other common offensive partners for offensive teams like Furo and Weezing really struggle with switching into Chinchou as well. So it's also now obviously Chinchou. There's a reason why Chinchou still isn't top 5. When I started out, I actually thought Chinchou was top 5, by the way, because it was just so hard to switch into, and I think Chinchou being top 10 or top 5 used to actually be a very old opinion back in 2020, but people kind of realized that Chinchou has a lot of flaws, mainly that it struggles with rest talk and normal types of the tier because I can't hit them super effectively at all, say Wigglytuff here, as well as Stantler, who also has the benefit of having guaranteed good sleep talk rolls against it thanks to Earthquake. Now, some people still really don't like Chinchou's presence in the tier because how limited because beyond the curse talk, beyond the rest talk normal types of the tier, it's still not an easy. Beyond the rest normal types of the tier and the grass types of the tier, they're generally very rare. It's actually the amount of Pokemon that can reliably switch into it over the course of a game is admittingly not very high. There's also now, and then there's also Restock Primate and Hitmonlee, but those and all those are decent. They also obviously can't be fit on every team. Now, I can honestly somewhat understand the sentiment, but overall, I feel the sentiment a lot more for actually Dugong instead of Chinchou. Dugong is the Pokemon that like I feel like all of those like complaints about being too hard to switch into apply to. Like because the thing about you need to understand is that like with the exception of grass types, pretty much every single one of the Pokemon that are tasked with switching into Chinchou are also tasked with switching into Dugong. Because I mean, if we look at the most common friends according to tier, Xatu, Octillery, Pineco, Dugtrio, you'll notice that like they all really struggle against Dugong. You might think Hidden Electric Octillery will just sit on Dugong all day, but like Octillery can't actually 3-hit KO it reliably with Hidden Electric, and Dugong can just freeze fish versus it. So the matchup is pretty much entirely in Dugong's favor. And this also brings me into why Vileplume has the potential to be like a really negative presence in the tier, because it and Dugong can potentially be really broken. First of all, it's because a lot of Dugong's checks become either significantly worse or completely unviable in the wake of Vileplume. Because I mean, Porygon again, like the aforementioned Chinchou probably drops out of the tier completely, and that's a really good check to Dugong. Porygon becomes significantly worse. Porygon might not be like unviable, but like might not be unviable, but like Vileplume is still a really big issue for it. It's because it can status Porygon, and Porygon does not use Rest Talk, so status pretty much instantly KOs it. And the fighting types of the tier, Primeape and Hitmonlee, both become like significantly worse, with Hitmonlee likely dropping out of the tier completely. So that's 4 very reliable checks to Dugong that just cease to exist from the tier. So, and the whole issue of like needing to rely on like rest type normal types to handle Chinchou that people have been complaining about might actually end up becoming even worse. And that issue might end up actually becoming even worse with Vileplume in the tier, because those rest normal types will be relied on even more to handle Dugong, and along with its partner of Vileplume. And being weak to, and if you've ever played the tier, you'll know that like being weak to Dugong is actually quite a massive uphill battle. Like this sample team from a long time ago, for example, I've tried using it, and whenever I face a Dugong, it's a really rough matchup because none of the Pokemon here can switch into it and break it long term. Now, I'm sure, like, now this sample team, this doesn't say the sample team isn't like bad, and I think like people can still make, a lot of people can, I think people might still be able to make use of it and be better and play around Dugong. For example, keeping Persian alive, just switch into it and annoy it, or just like trying to force it to rest and doing big damage to it with like Fearow. But it's still a really rough battle versus Dugong, and it's worth noting that this team was made during an era where Dugong's most common set wasn't Rest Talk. I think it was made during like when like Encore and Toxic were the most common sets. So like not being able to so struggling with Rest Talk Dugong at that time wasn't as big a deal as like it is now. Nowadays you'll see a lot more people want to be like really secure against Rest Talk Dugong, and like really want to fit like a Rest Talk normal type or fighting type on their team. And Dugong also, Dugong in my opinion is probably the biggest poke I think about when team building, and it's the sole reason why like whenever I make say like a Fearow team, I pretty much need to include something like Rest Talk Wigglytuff or Stanmore on it, because otherwise I'm just up the creek with a paddle versus Dugong. And Dugong in combination with Vileplume just kind of can sit on at least one of the top threats of the. It can sit on so many top threats of the tier that it can potentially be really unhealthy. Like Xatu, for example, struggles to break. Xatu and Weezing kind of struggle to break Dugong. Weezing can do a decent amount of damage with Thunder, but like it's not too KOing, and Dugong still has speeds, and there's also the problem with accuracy. Dugtrio, on the other hand, like one of the best breakers of the tier, struggles to break both. So, and that's you can tell that could be an issue for a lot of offensive teams. Now, the combination of Dugong and Vileplume, like, is not, while being pretty absurd, would not be unbreakable. And one of the few Pokemon that can actually break through it would actually be Sunny Day Ninetales. Now, Sunny Day Ninetales would absolutely adore a metagame with a GSC and U metagame with Vileplume in it. I mean, think about it, like, Artillery gets worse, Dugtrio gets worse, Dugong gets better, and a Grass type becomes a top threat. Now, the thing you need to realize is that Sunny Day Ninetales can actually flat out just win the 1v1 against Dugong. Because it can 3-hit KO under Sun, unlike with Artillery, and the Dugong just does jack to it. Dugong can't even fish for a freeze, because fun fact, in Generation 2, freeze, you cannot be frozen while under Sun. So that means that Sunny Day Ninetales becomes one of the few ways of breaking the Vileplume plus Dugong core reliably, and not even just Sunny Day Ninetales. Not even just Sunny Day Ninetales, fire types the fire types of GSC, and you would just really love Vileplume in the tier. Like Magmar becomes like a really, really threatening breaker in the tier because with Dugong and Vileplume being so prominent together, like how and grows past Flareon into Hidden Power Grass Dugong would also be so much more threatening as well. This kind of introduces like a pretty interesting fire, water, grass dynamic to this tier, because like currently in GSCNU water types are the most dominant are far more dominant than fire and grass types, because like the grass types of the tier are very rare and not easily fit on most teams that aren't just like slower bounce teams, and because of that, fire types also can tend to struggle because, and this kind of, so Vileplume being in the tier would actually could actually be a positive, could actually have like a positive impact because of that. Kind of like decentralizing water types and like allowing more fire types to shine in the tier. Now, as for its Vileplume's impact beyond that, Xatu and Weezing would still probably be top threats, and they might even be like, but like I don't, because like it's hard to say whether Xatu and Weezing would either of them would be like significantly better or worse in this meta, because both absolutely love the rise of a Pokemon that they both destroy, but both hate the increased prominence of Ninetales and Dugong. Furo would probably love this meta a lot because rock types will probably be better in this meta as well, because the fire types will be more common. And also because Dugong and Vileplume will become even more unbreakable if Graveler can spin away spikes. Also, Furo would be, as I mentioned before, Furo would be a lot more common in the tier, so rock type's defensive services will be a lot more needed in the tier. Pineco is probably ends up being even more important in the tier, because like the thing is like Vileplume would actually struggle with giving Pineco opportunity, because like it's not that strong. Its Slowdrome isn't that strong, so I think like Vileplume, I mean Pineco can actually fairly reliably live 2 hits from it. So maybe even more than fairly reliably. I think it might even be able to live 3 actually, and it might have a chance to live 3. So Pineco ends up being even better in this meta. And it might actually be the thing that prevents this meta from Vileplume meta from being like a stall fest, because or like way too slow paced for most people's liking, because Pineco being able to so consistently keep spikes up might be the tier's more reliable way of generating offense in the tier. And Dugtrio probably falls off a decent bit, but like it would still have a place in the meta because with fire types being more prominent, and plus neither Vileplume nor Dugong are perfect checks to it. So yeah. Now, as for Vileplume's flaws, besides the aforementioned issue of it giving opportunities to Pineco, Moonlight only has 8 PP, meaning that like in the long term, it's not going to mean that like it would probably struggle to keep in check certain threats like Dugtrio in the long term. And it's the fact that it uses Moonlight also makes it very vulnerable to paralysis, because it means that like since it doesn't use rest talk, it can't heal it off. So, and they're also because there are no heal bell users in the tier besides mostly the unviable Snubble, and if it does get paralyzed, that means it's that's food for the likes of Ice Beam Octillery, and it's just generally vulnerable to getting to Pokemon that can like 3 or 4 KO, because like all it takes is just 1 full para and then it's toast. And it also still struggles to hit Weezing outside of Stun Spore. So overall, I would Vileplume impact this meta. I think with Vileplume in the meta, we will see kind of like different chains and breakers that people rely on. Like I think the likes of Fearow, Magmar, Restock Stantler, and Curse Wigglytuff, and Baton Pass Flareon will be more relied on, will be used a lot more on offensive teams. And like the general structure of like because like the core I keep mentioning of Xatu, Octillery, Pineco, and Dugtrio, it might shift over as well a bit. Like maybe Fearow gets used in the Dugtrio spot more often, maybe and because like it can still, because Fearow still accomplishes a lot of Dugtrio's revenge killing properties, but Fearow coming with the benefit of destroying Vileplume would probably be more common. Would probably make it a more common choice in the meta. I still don't really think Dugtrio would fall off completely, because I mean Vileplume is just one poke and it wouldn't even be used on every single team, or at least not. But yeah, like offense, like even though like balance, Graveler balance teams that previously commonly used Gloom would become better than ever, I can't really say for sure that it'll just turn the tier into like a slow and boring balance fest, because Vileplume still has all the issues that Gloom has today. There's still plenty of good breakers, and it might honestly just Vileplume in the tier might honestly be like give the likes of Ninetales and Magmar, and especially Magmar, more opportunities to shine on offensive teams, because Magmar especially is a Pokemon that like is very, very rare nowadays, despite its incredible breaking power. And Magmar is very difficult to team build with due to its general lack of defensive integrity, and I think both with Vileplume in the tier, it might make offensive players that use offensive teams seriously consider using Magmar more on the standard Xatu Dugtrio offense teams. Also, Magmar will probably use Hidden Power Ground as its force move more often than not because Ninetales will be better in this tier. Like, so overall, Vileplume has the potential to make GSC NU as a whole like a lot more slow paced, a lot more balance centric, which I think would be going in the wrong direction. But at the same time, but at the same time, like offense still won't be like bad in the tier. Like offense can still adapt. And it might be able to adapt enough to the point where Vileplume just ends up being a minor inconvenience more than anything. Instead of a plus Vileplume might also see use on offensive teams as well. Could still very well see use on offensive teams because compared to Gloom, it's far less passive. And its paralysis can be really good for they have to mention Magmar, and as well as likes of Stantler and even the likes of even the likes of Primeape might still not be unviable in this tier. Because Primeape can still make use of Vileplume's Stun Spore, notably using it to not be arcade by Xatu, and Vileplume could probably run something like Meditate and Empire Flying alongside like a Miracle Berry to cope with Vileplume in the tier. So there would still be, I don't think. So while I think balance will get better in a Vileplume meta, it might still be worth trying Vileplume in the tier because like offense would still be able to will more than likely still be able to adapt to Vileplume's place in the tier, and offense might still just end up being the more dominant playstyle even with Vileplume in the tier. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Vileplume in GSC NU. Again, if you disagree with me, feel free to let me know in the comments. And that's about it. See ya.